Hey there, Scott Wilkinson here, the home theater geek. Welcome to another episode of AVS Forum Tech Talk. Now, as you might notice, I am not in my normal studio, and that's because I live in Central California, and my house has no power. We've been having tons of rain, as most of you probably know, and power outages and mudslides and floods and all sorts of biblical level stuff. But my house is fine, no damage, just no power. So my friends have been kind enough to let me use their office in their house where they do have power. So thank goodness for good friends. Today we are going to be talking about CES, which just ended last weekend. And I myself didn't go because I actually got a pretty bad respiratory infection shortly before the show and decided it would be that discretion would be the better part of valor. So I didn't go, but I got a couple people here who did. First off, let me introduce Mike Heiss, who is a CEDIA fellow and a jolly good fellow at that, and a journalist for hidden wires and residential systems, and an industry consultant and a generally all-around great guy. Hey, Mike, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, Scott, glad to hear that you're okay. Just a quick correction, residential tech, not
Tech,
residential systems.
my
I'll go
apologies.
to magazine jail, no problem.
Oh, no, 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 no. We don't want you to go to magazine jail. Definitely.
And, I went to the show because, I want to take one for the team.
Well, and I sure do appreciate it.
No
Uh,
problem.
and I'm sure you saw a bunch of stuff. Now, behind
Yes,
the
indeed.
scenes, we also have our very own Chris Mata, technical director of this show and host of the YouTube channel That Home Theater Dude. And he is, in fact, with us as well. He's doing a little something behind the scenes because we were kind of at the last minute scrambling here. I don't know if he's available to come on just yet, but here he is. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, I'm just in the background organizing this slide deck so that we can have the presentation for you guys. So just give me a couple minutes. I'll pop back in once everything's nice and uploaded, and then we'll go
Okay,
from there.
cool.
Also, nice to see you guys.
Hey,
CDO
Nice
Chris.
to see you too.
CS was crazy. I'm glad I made it, but
Yep. Well, we'll
got
hear
out of
you.
there alive.
Got out of there alive. Well, we'll definitely look forward to your impressions as well. We are unfortunately missing Eric Wesley, the editor of AVS Forum, who was scheduled to be on the show, but he came back with the CES crud, which I don't know about you, Mike, but I've come back with that crud more often than not, probably. And because I was sick just before the show, I didn't want to go and take the chance of getting sick again. Did you survive unscathed?
Within reason. I mean, that clearly shows that you're smarter than I am because I went and you stayed home. Other than a little cold, I think that I picked up afterwards with all the rain and all the nonsense that we've gotten down here in Southern California as well.
Right.
Was pretty. I'm doing okay, thank you. And one of the interesting things, I've got more COVID tests than you need because the people from Abbott Labs were walking around and literally handing them out.
No
So,
kidding.
no, they were there with a pretty big presence. So and I don't know if you saw the releases. Now, believe what you will, they're claiming over 110,000 attendees unaudited. I'll believe it when I see the
When you see
audit.
the audited version, yeah, the press release I saw said 115,000.
There you go. But
So it's certainly lower than pre-pandemic, which was
well,
closer to 180,000.
yeah, and a different measure is for those of you who are familiar with the Las Vegas Convention Center, where CES has been for many years now.
30
Uh,
plus years, 40 years.
yeah, it used to be the Central Hall, the main original building, the North Hall, which is north of the Central Hall, and catch me on this, the South Hall,
Yep,
which is south of the main hall.
I believe
Um,
that's correct.
last time I looked, and also what used to be called the Sands Expo or the Venetian Expo now.
Right.
They did not use the Sands Expo at all.
Mm.
They did use the Central Hall, they did use the North Hall, and they used the new West Hall, which is where the landmark used to be years ago.
Okay.
If you remember from Martians Invade Earth, it's across the street there.
Right, right, right.
And that's a big new building that looks like a European airline terminal. And that's where they put mostly all the automotive folk.
Which there were a lot this year, so I understand.
Well, not really. And that was the interesting part. The last show that I went to, which was not last year, but the pre-pandemic, when the auto folk were in the North Hall, all the worldwide major automakers were there.
Yeah.
This year, the worldwide automakers that were there were Stellantis, which owns Jeep when they, sort of rebranded it out of Fiat, Chrysler. And kind of that was it. Hyundai Kia was not there. Mercedes was not there. VW Porsche Audi was not there. Ford was not there.
Really?
BMW was in the parking lot, but they didn't have an exhibit on the floor. So the thing that I found both interesting and strange is that, with the exception of Stellantis and Faraday Future, which is a EV startup guy, and an interesting one to watch called VF, which is an EV made in Vietnam.
Wow.
And it looks very interesting. Caterpillar and John Deere were there with huge things. When you see those pictures in the Discovery Channel things of these huge dump trucks in the open pit mines where the tires are 10 foot tall.
They
had one of those, and there was this huge John Deere agricultural thing, and the point of it was that they were autonomous. Now, whether I want a gazillion ton dump truck working autonomously, but I don't, get found in pit mines very often. Most of the exhibitors were suppliers.
This is very weird. It's the Consumer Electronics Show.
And a lot of my friends in the press were talking about that. And the best way I can describe what was in the West Hall is like when we go to Display Week doesn't sell displays. Display Week is where the people who make the displays go to buy the stuff that they then sell to you. Right. And that's the kind of, very interesting AI and autonomous driving and LiDAR.
I would have thought there's a lot of autonomous driving stuff there.
There was, but it was the things that make things happen. And which presages the fact that there will be a lot of autonomous driving. And these are the folks that are going to provide the inner workings. But I just found that interesting. But to displays, there were a lot of cool, large, interesting vehicle displays. Because you need them to be high brightness,
right?
High contrast.
Yep.
Really able to withstand very cold, very wet, and very hot in a dashboard where the sun is shining down.
Yeah.
It's like being in an aircraft cockpit. So and wide. So a vehicular display is pretty tricky. It's like the difference between a regular component and a mil-spec component.
Oh, right, sure.
So there were a lot of displays, and even when we get around to it later about what was in the LG display, again, the people that make the displays and then sell them to LG.
LG Electronics, yeah.
Right, and Sony.
And others, yeah.
And many others. At least half of their secret display suite was vehicular displays.
I remember the last time I went to was just pre-pandemic 2020.
Yep.
January 2020, pandemic started March of that year, and in this LG secret suite, it was an awful lot of vehicular display. You're exactly right.
But they did have, clearly a lot of consumer stuff. And I think that sort of leads, at least from my viewpoint, it was an interesting show. There wasn't anything never within reason. No earth-shattering. The year when this show was still in McCormick Place and they introduced Betamax, or and I was there.
You were there? Okay.
Yes, I was. Or when they introduced OLED, LG was promoting that this is the 10th anniversary of OLED. Or even last year, not last year, the last year
2020.
when they introduced QD-OLED.
Oh, right.
And you could say that was a fairly significant introduction.
I agree.
There was nothing like that this year, which doesn't mean the show was good or bad. It means that it was what it was.
As you said in your note to me, more evolutionary than revolutionary.
Yes. And a change, as I in my writing in Residential Tech today,
yes,
and hiddenwires.co.uk, where I'm going to focus is it's not about what things are, it's about what things do and who do it with them. For example, and I'll one more and then I'll stop carrying on here. As you may have read, and I think we have a picture later, Sony introduced for the third time their car, which is now going to be done with Honda. So it's called Honda Mobility, and the brand name is AFILA, as in some wiseacres said they were going to bring back James Brown and make it I Feel a Good. Or if it were Bill Clinton, they'd say, I feel your pain.
Yeah.
There you go.
In fact, there it is.
It
was ugly.
Well, that's the rear shot. I didn't send Scott
that is an ugly rear end.
I feel you. I feel your rear.
But they made a big point of the fact that they've got over 45 external and internal sensors and cameras. You could say that this is a technology showcase for Sony that Honda is going to build, pre-orders in 2025, delivery in 2026. Chris, could you put that shot back up, please, for a sec? But when we were talking about vehicular displays, what you can see across that banner right under the trunk lid, it can display your parking permit.
That's amazing. So I just noticed that it's actually a display.
Say what you're streaming on Spotify.
But on the front of the car, where they've got another one of these displays, they were promoting the Spider-Man movie.
Oh, wouldn't that be awesome though if you could just drive around and get paid? Like if you could put ads on your car.
Point. Yeah, I'm the guy who goes to the dealer, and when they want to put the the little plate on the back of your car, from Joe Blow Honda, I say no, give me another $500 off the car, and I'll let you put the thing on. That same thought, Chris, is whether you'll be able to rent out the back of your. This is going to get ugly. Whether you're able to
rent out your rear. I'm not using my rear right now. You want to rent it?
On the other hand, I know that you're a DC because it says right there. So if you have a patient or a client and you get them a handicap permit, that you could have the handicap permit on there, or as it shows your parking permit, or in areas where they have timed parking, the sensors and the GPS will show that you went into that parking spot at 1 p.m. And if you don't put another dime in the virtual meter, it'll light up and the parking enforcement officer will give you a ticket. Virtually.
Your car is going to narc on you? That's ridiculous.
This reminds me.
We digress, but I'm here.
It's true, but we're not here to talk about cars. But while we're here, I'm going to say I've been starting to see some news items about digital license plates, right?
Yes, California has them. And there's all sorts of questions about, how much are they going to be able to track you, and how much more of an invasion of privacy is this than what we already have? Here's another step along that way. Yes.
So Very, very interesting.
Scott, one
Yeah,
more thing though. While we're just at the tail end of talking about Sony,
yeah.
guess what Sony had in their booth?
Tell me.
No, let me change the question. Guess what Sony did not have in their booth?
This I know. They had no televisions.
That's pretty much
correct.
the sign of the times, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. So that being said, we will transition over to TVs, to important TV announcements, and in some cases,
Or not.
or important lack of announcements. Chris, while we're here, before we get there, Mike gave us some general impressions. Give me some impressions from you about CES, the show.
Unpopular opinion, this was the worst CES I've been to date.
Wow. Tell us why.
So?
There was a complete lack of innovation. It really seems like, and this is what I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, that the idea with CES is turning out to be that these big companies, they're getting comfortable, right? For me as an AV guy, it's always been, whenever they come out and they show you the new TVs for the year, or, what they've been working on for the year, the innovations, right?
Right.
Sony, for the last several years, has yet to put out an actual TV on display. They're more excited about their car, and they have been for the last 3 CESs that they've done. I remember 2019, they were so excited about their car.
Yeah.
Last year, they didn't even bother putting out TVs at all. The great migration back to CES in person. The one before that was virtual.
Right.
Didn't even bother bringing TVs. LG's lot was vacant last year. But, I was thinking, hey, well, maybe they're saving it. Maybe they're back, inventing new things, and the next year will be awesome. That's not the case. So I get there and I'm rearing. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I get to the Sony booth. It's nothing but VR, something about AI and space. They had the AFILA car there.
Right.
0 panels at all. I was completely let down. But in that regard, the companies like TCL and Hisense, both those guys are making a massive push. Whenever the rest of these guys are getting very comfortable. Like I said, LG didn't even bother going a couple of years ago.
Right.
They actually came back this year, which was pretty good. But yeah.
And they had a big booth, but I understand they had a big booth with their famous bunch of
they brought it back.
a bunch of OLEDs in a giant wavy entrance, that's very impressive.
They've had the same thing for years, and I'm pretty sure that's the only location that they ever use it for. So I'm sure it just sits in a cargo space.
No, they use it. I've seen it at international trade shows. They've used it at IFA and they use it at ISC.
Okay.
But there's one other interesting thing, though, Chris. You're absolutely right, and I concur with you. The only actual TV in the LG booth was the 98, 97, I can't remember, all wireless thing.
Right.
There were very few TVs, if any, in the Samsung booth because they were all pushing other agendas.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Chris, did you make it over to the Samsung First Look in Caesars?
I didn't. Just so you guys know, I'm recently coming off of hip surgery. As you can see, my crutch right back here.
Oh!
So I was basically crutching around CES this year. And to be honest, I didn't even know that I was going to make it out until a couple days before, that I was even physically capable of doing that. So
wow.
I did not make it to the First Look. I think that was on Tuesday.
Correct.
But I did go last year, which was really awesome. So I was really expecting there to be a really nice treat there.
Okay. In fairness, you may have been crutching, but I was kvetching.
I'm having a schwitz here.
I just do these to make Scott laugh.
Oh, man. But if you do now, you're going to make me cough, too. So
sorry. In fairness to Samsung, they must have had an area in the Caesars Convention Center that was almost as big as their booth, and at least 75% of it was TVs and monitors. And there were a lot of TVs there and elsewhere. And one of the things that was sort of a thing boiling up is the monetization of TVs and the game monetization, the monetization of TVs and the TVization of monitors.
Mm-hmm.
And at this first look, which they held all week at Caesars, that's where they had all sorts of TVs. And Sharp had 5,000 square feet in a hotel, which I didn't go to, of TVs, and they're getting back into the market.
The return of Sharp. Can you believe that? That I saw that in a press release, and I went, "Wow, the return of Sharp. Will they have any more success than last time? We shall see."
Yeah, it looks like we do have a slide deck to get to, but just to talk about just the general temperature of the show itself, it really seems that instead of coming together for let's face it, it's a convention to get everyone excited about tech and gear.
Right.
Everyone wants to do their own thing that's not on the floor. Like everyone's trying their hardest not to have everything in one space, right? Mm-hmm. And even then, I really think that some of the bigger brands are even going to come out with their own events and save their product releases and product launches for their own events out of CES, so they don't have to pay the royalties. So
like Apple. That's
exactly.
What Apple
does. Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone wants their own convention so they can monetize it for their own means.
Well, and plus the fact that I've seen a number of stories that said, yes, Sony had no TVs there, but they're going to introduce their own TVs later in the spring at their own event.
At SonyCon.
Is this the return of manufacturer line shows?
No.
You don't think so?
No.
Because I remember, Mike and I certainly remember, Chris, you might as well, back in the day, back when I was a youngster, each manufacturer had a line show, and they would fly all of us journalists out to Florida or out to Texas or out to somewhere, and Sony would have theirs, and Toshiba had theirs, and Mitsubishi had theirs, and Panasonic had theirs.
Who are those guys?
Yeah, well, but I wonder if it makes me wonder if there might be a return to that.
I don't know. It kind of seems like the scale's tipping, but we'll see where it goes. But that's kind of where I was going with that.
They'll do it virtually, right? Because flying everybody around all over creation is expensive. Anyway, let's get to some of the stories that we do have pictures for, and we do want to show you some pictures. And probably the biggest, certainly the TV announcement that got the most press, as far as I was concerned, from what I saw from all the press releases and news articles that I saw about CES, was this unknown TV company called Displace. And they had a thing called the Displace TV, which was completely wireless. Not even a power cord. Now, normally when you say wireless TV, I think of, yes, okay, you could be beaming the signal, the video audio signal wirelessly, but there's got to be a power cord. Well, not in this case. Mike, give us a brief description here.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should have taken some more pictures. It looks like
you like taking pictures of the rear. This is the back of the TV.
Yeah,
but that was important. That's the first time I've actually did a picture like that. Although it does look weird with the feet underneath, and those two black things look like a pair of Edsels or a Rivian.
Right.
What those black,
it's the grills,
sort of elongated vertical things on the back is a vacuum system powered by the batteries that they say the set is 20 pounds. You pick it up, you jam it against a surface, not brick, but they claim almost any flat surface, and it will suck itself onto the wall. Oh, come on.
So this is a 55-inch TV with an LG OLED panel, 4K, I think.
Yes, but one of the interesting things that they were promoting, if you look over to the left side of the picture, that's not one of them, that's two of them. And what they were saying is if you have two of them and put them side by side, you change the aspect ratio and you can have 8K, or you build like the direct view LED guys do.
Right.
You build a 2x2, you get a 16K.
Now you got a
Watch the
little you've
walk.
got a little bezel, but if you do that, if you use these like tiles, like micro LED
Exactly.
tiles, you'll get a little bezel line between the tiles, unlike a micro LED or a DV LED. So I'm not sure I would do that, but okay, so it's a battery powered TV
Yeah.
that gets its power from a battery. So obviously there's no need to plug it into the wall. That they say lasts what 20 hours or something.
180 hours is
There
the
are four
total life on it.
batteries.
Yeah.
There are two on the edges of each side,
Mhm.
Okay.
and they
They're hot
didn't announce
swappable.
they didn't show the charger. There has to be, where do you, it's wireless, but unlike the LG thing, which was clearly much better thought out, where's the box? Where do you plug your streaming devices or your cable box or your Xbox or your PlayStation
Right.
into? Didn't show it, no
Didn't
price,
show that.
no. But Chris, again, if you wouldn't mind putting the
Mhm.
picture back up, please. On the set, I'm pointing at it like you can see it. On the
I can see
set,
it.
on the set on the left, you see there's a little bump towards the left side of that set.
Yep. Yep.
That's a camera, and the camera is not just for sort of zoomy doomy webcammy things. It has a, that's the control mechanism. It's controlled like, remember the old Xbox Connect?
Yes. Or
With the,
LG had a gesture remote system at one point.
yeah, but there is no remote for this TV.
Right.
No,
You just gesture with your hand.
or if you say, but I can't do that, or I don't want to do it, or I'm going to knock the person sitting next to me in the face, um, there is an app, but there's no hard remote. And people will buy it. It's novel. Get a good, if you want this kind of thing, spend a little money, get a good installer, and have them put the wires behind the wall like everybody else does.
Right.
Or buy
John
the LG thing.
Well, when we're going to talk about that in a minute, we just saw a note from who was it? John Mochi. Sony was absent as of their TV lineup. Wonder if this was planned to see what the competition has to offer.
No,
I don't think
don't
so.
think so?
Sony's kind of the tip of the spear whenever it comes to that stuff.
It's true, and
they're
they
more,
whatever's yeah.
they like to put stuff out, and then like say with like the projectors, they'll put out their projector that they worked on, and then JVC will come around with a little bit extra wiggle room and time, and then put out something a little bit smidge of it better than it.
Right. Now the other thing we want to say about Displace TV is it costs $3,000 for a 55-inch TV. And Mike, you made a really good comment of what happens when the battery dies if you don't recharge it.
You have a nice TV on the floor.
You have a nice TV on the floor because the suction thing stops working.
Now, in fairness, I didn't ask them. They said that it is a startup and they only have 6 employees, which I find a bit odd. They're down in San Diego, but one of the fellow folks that I was talking to said there is some sort of mastic that if it sees that the display, that the batteries are running down, that it injects some mastic into the wall to, to hold
some
it on.
sticky stuff.
Good luck with that, okay?
I think we're honing too much into this.
Yeah,
all right.
Okay, we're already at 29 minutes.
a much better wireless entry is the LG M3, and we have a picture of that as well. Mike, these are all pictures that you took at the show, so thank you very much for that.
My pleasure.
So here we have it's a 97-inch TV. OLED or LED?
Yes, OLED.
OLED. Okay.
Still unpriced.
Of course. And this one requires a power cord. But other than that, everything else, you plug in your gaming box or your streaming box or whatever into a separate box.
Which is that thing on the side.
Okay, you can hardly see it because it's black against a dark curtain,
Yeah, sorry.
but there it is to the left of the TV as we're looking at it, and that then beams the signal to the TV. You know what? One question I have, I don't know if either of you can answer this. What protocol, what system are they using to beam the audio and video? And my question comes up because
Proprietary.
it's proprietary. So is it lossy or is it lossless? If it's lossless, then that's a very high bandwidth wireless stream going on
I'm
there for
it's high
4K.
band it's high bandwidth, but I had no reference because they weren't really playing any audio.
Hmm.
So, and they weren't playing a game, so there was no way to judge anything regarding latency. But
Right.
LG knows what they're doing,
That's
and
true. That's true.
I have to believe they've got that worked out. And they had only three HDMI, all 2.1 outputs.
Hmm.
They
Inputs, you
did
mean?
inputs. I'm sorry. They did not say whether it will have an ATSC 3.0 tuner. I don't
Mm.
know. It did have a tuner built in, and there was a little, like a spinner, like almost like a turntable on the top of that box that you could spin around, and that'll help you orient the antenna. So if you're an OTA
Ah.
kind of person,
Ah. Okay. Well, that's kind of cool.
it did look good. I mean, there's no question about it. It had a great picture.
Um, Jawbreaker is asking, is there an option to connect the box to the TV with a cable in case
No,
there's not? So that's
no,
it. It's wireless, period.
no. Yep.
And Beatmaster's asking, how do you get the signal to your AVR? Well, you plug all your if you have an AVR, you plug all your devices into your AVR and then plug its output to this box, I think, right?
Well, you plug all your sources into that box, and then that's the whole deal, that it's wireless from the box to the set. And we asked them about the range, and they
Hmm.
said, 30, 40 feet.
Oh, okay. All right. But
So
if you have
basically, this is a wireless TV that doesn't suck.
right.
I'm not going there.
Dad jokes.
All right, all right. Beatmaster also said LG copying Samsung with their One Connect box, which is true. They had a One Connect box, but in the case of Samsung, with that box, there was one cable that went from the box to the TV,
Fiber.
fiber, and here there's none. So we shall see. We shall see. Okay, what else do we have in the display world? Oh, one thing I was hoping for.
Oops.
Okay, while we're at LG, oh, okay, that's fine. While we're at LG, they had another cool thing um, called micro lens array and meta. And these two things are related. One is hardware, one is software. Chris, did you see this?
I did not.
Okay, then Mike, it's up to you. Tell us what we're looking at here.
And the meta does not mean that Zuckerberg bought LG.
Right.
The shot that you're looking at now is in what, as we sort of jokingly referred to it, the secret room
Hmm.
by LG Display.
Right.
So anything you see in that room is going to happen eventually, but there's no guarantee because it depends on whether or not even LG Electronics buys it. But the deal of this meta display with the lenses is that it actually puts a lens on top of the little OLED pixel, pixels,
Right.
and focuses it more precisely. And again, you can't tell from this image, but the pictures were pretty good. And part of this is, yes, it's the evolution of displays, and part of it is they've got to keep feeding something new, or people will go elsewhere.
No, true enough. I did some reading on this particular technology, which is very interesting. And you said they put a lens on top of each pixel, which isn't quite true. They put 5,000 lenses on top of each pixel,
Sounds
I
expensive.
can't count that high.
which means for a 77-inch panel, that's 42 billion micro lenses. And what I read was that it helps improve brightness, improve the efficiency, of the display, which means improving brightness, peak brightness. And it also comes with a software algorithm called Meta, which, as you say, does not mean Mark Zuckerberg bought it. That again boosts brightness. It even improves viewing angle, which you might think, wait a second, OLED already has a great viewing angle, and they do.
This was better.
This was better. Okay, great. So this is a future technology kind of thing. You say LG Display, not LG Electronics. So this isn't going to be in next year's TVs.
Well, no.
That's not true. It's not true. It's going to be in the G3.
It's not going to be in this year's. It may well be in next year's.
No. I think you're wrong. I think my reading of the news is that it's going to be in the LG G3 Evo.
Oh, so, right. Yeah.
Okay.
So
G3, by the way, anybody who isn't familiar with LG's model numbers, the number after the letter refers to the year of that production. So last year was G2, C2, B2. This year is G3, C3, and the G3 Evo, which is a step-up model, is going to have this micro lens array. Also, the Panasonic MZ2000, which Panasonic doesn't sell TVs in the U.S. anymore. Maybe they will, hopefully, we hope. But that's another OLED using an LG display panel with these micro lens array technology. So that's going to be, I think that to me looks pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to checking that out. Okay, now I was going to say a little earlier, I was hoping for larger sizes in QD-OLED, quantum dot OLED, which was the big announcement of last year, which was a fairly important improvement in OLED technology, eliminating the color filters that OLEDs have used up to now and actually using quantum dots as emitters. And so you have green quantum dot subpixels as emitters, red quantum dot subpixels, and then clear subpixels for the blue backlight to come through. And I was happy to see that Samsung had one. We don't have a photo of it, unfortunately. Did you guys see the Samsung S95C?
That was in the first look thing at Caesars.
Right.
And it was hard to take pictures there.
Yeah, understood. And this, by the way, for those of you who need a little refresher on Samsung model numbers, they use their last letter to indicate the year. So last year it was the S95B for 2022. This year it's the S95C. And now it's going to be available in a 77-inch size. So I'm really happy to see that. I'm kind of bummed. I doubt seriously that it's going to support Dolby Vision because Samsung doesn't support Dolby Vision.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And since Sony didn't have anything in the show at all in the way of TVs, then we don't know that their QD-OLED is going to be any larger this year, but we'll see in the spring. Mike, you didn't get any pictures of Samsung Micro LED, did you?
No, I didn't. And I'm glad you brought that up because they announced a 76-inch, what they're going to call CX.
Right.
I'm just looking down at my note here.
Yeah.
And then in one of the press releases, they also claimed a bunch of other screen sizes. And I'm just looking on my notes here. They claim for micro 50, 63, 76, 89, and they already have 101 and 140.
Right.
But the only thing that they said will be coming soon was the 76, and clearly it's still in the, if you have to ask, you can't afford it, no price mentioned.
Right, sure.
And if it was there, I didn't see it. They just had some explanation on one of the back walls.
Right. Chris, did you see it?
Nope. I didn't get a lot of Samsung time.
Yeah, unfortunate. A couple of things I learned about it from the press releases was 20-bit light processing.
Yeah.
That's deep.
That's deep, man. Very deep. And dig this, a response time. We talk about LCD response time in the milliseconds. even OLED response time, pixel response time in the milliseconds. This micro LED CX is going to have a response time of 2 nanoseconds. So for gamers, well, looks like we have an unhappy member of society somewhere over there. With a 240 hertz panel with variable refresh rate. So, Mike, to your point of the game monitorification of TVs, here it is.
And there were to somewhat, just to confuse people, and again, I'm just looking down at my notes, there were a lot of companies talking about 240, and 144 is kind of all over the place. So that's going to be one of the next big selling points, but you have to be careful as to whether the panel can actually go that fast or whether the processing is going that fast.
Good point.
And one does not always necessarily mean the other. And in the case of some of the TCL products, and they were upfront about it, that if you up the refresh, you'll lower the resolution.
Okay. All right.
And I presume that that's a function of that really, pulls down a lot of processing power to do that.
The other interesting thing I read about the Samsung Micro LED CX is that the smaller sizes would not need professional installation. Up till now, you get a Micro LED video wall made up of tiles, and you'd need to have a professional come in and install the tiles and align them and so on and so forth. And these smaller ones, apparently you won't. So that's pretty cool.
Well, halfway. The 77 will apparently be shipped as one. One of the things that Samsung showed both at Infocom and in October, in September at CEDIA, is instead of a micro LED panel being like, a couple of dozen of these individual modules, they ship it as two big collections of the modules, and then in one carton, and then in another carton they have two back plates. So you hang the black back plate to the wall, and then you slam the micro LED on it. So it is a lot easier, but it is definitely not do it yourself. Or maybe Displace will come on with one like that.
Yeah, maybe so. We got some comments here. Beatmaster says, I hope they're going to redo the pixel array arrangement for the next QD-OLED generation. That's a good question. That's coming out of Samsung Display.
Yep.
And so Sony uses that as well. So we don't know whether they're going to do that or not. But let's see. Oh, Mike Lucas in the chat room. Oh, well, okay. Timmersoft is asking, any 16K TVs? This actually brings up an interesting point, which is that 8K was much less prominent at this year's CES. Would you agree? That's what I saw in a news item.
It was, although Samsung, as one might expect, was heavily promoting that, and they're very big in promoting 8K in general. There wasn't as much attention to 8K outside of Samsung. And one of the things that's going on behind the scenes that's driven by the EU, which is the European Union has put out a power consumption requirement that basically means no more 8Ks and no more micro LEDs. And there was a lot
because they take too much power.
Exactly. And there was a lot of behind the scenes talk about that. Some of it can't be fixed, especially if you get into bigger screen sizes. Some of it can be fixed, and
we're to a point of too much, right? So we're going to need solar-powered 8K.
But some of the manufacturers have said we may have to temporarily halt, but they've got some tricks up their sleeve to get around it, which they've asked me not to.
The grid can't handle all these massive displays that everyone wants to be putting out, which brings us to our next slide, right?
Right. Well, the 110, the Hisense 110. There you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of 8K,
8K 110 display, which is absolutely nuts. They also have their one that they're not releasing just yet, but they wanted to be the first to market. They have their 8K UST, which has a built-in sound bar as well as wireless subwoofer capability. Pretty cool stuff.
Right.
They were throwing everything against the wall too, unless you go down to the Displace booth. They were throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. Come on, you didn't let me get to the punchline, Scott.
Yeah. Throwing everything against the wall.
Cool, though. This one was pretty cool.
But that is to what Chris was saying earlier. Hisense and TCL really did have all kinds and sorts of things. And for example, Hisense is starting to refine their model lines because they want to get out of being, cast as another cheap Chinese set. So this ULED, UX, that's their attempt to really show we're as good as the big folk. Mm-hmm. And TCL similarly is reorienting how they designate their model lineup into an S series and a Q series. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that won't be too confusing. But when you get into the upper Q series line, they're even putting in some features to appeal to the custom install market. So these folk are going full bore at it.
Yeah, I was looking. Go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say, Mike, you referred to the Q series. That's TCL.
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Whenever I was looking at the booth, I was looking more or less of not just what's on display itself for like displays and TVs and whatever they wanted to have for like their namesake. Because again, CES is more a panel type of a convention. Mm-hmm. The reason why I made that statement earlier is that these guys are coming out with like different things, refrigerators, appliances, ACs, mini splits, stuff like that. Basically stuff that LG and Samsung have been doing for multiple years. These guys are coming out and they're really like putting their elbows out, trying to make a name for themselves. And I think that they're speaking for themselves whenever they're putting out stuff like this.
Yeah.
This may not be very common and maybe, still expensive, but for the most part, like look at the woodwork on that cabinet, like it looks incredible. It looks like almost like a Bang & Olufsen type of display, like a design.
Yeah.
Not to mention just the sheer size of it and, the ability that it does have 8K. But I mean, this is some really, really cool stuff that they're putting out. And everyone was stopping and taking pictures and videos of that cool water display back there. You guys can't see it from the picture, but it actually lit up different letters and stuff, like it spelled out stuff. Super cool stuff.
Wow.
But Chris, in fairness to TCL and Hisense, their entry into the what in the trade they call the MAJAPs, major appliances or white goods market.
Yeah.
That's new to the US, but they've been making those in the domestic and the China market and to some extent in Europe for quite a while. So they're not there. This isn't their first rodeo, but where this also begins to say what was being shown at CES, not only the new guys in the US, TCL and Hisense, but particularly Samsung and LG were beginning to really promote the TV as the hub, talking to all the other devices in the house, and increasingly using Matter, which is a topic for another time. But the ability of everything to really debabbilize and talk to each other. So that was what they were showing. Instead of walls of TVs, it was a wall of smart devices connected to the TV. And a lot of digital health.
Right. Which is a topic for another podcast, not ours. Yes. One more thing about 8K that I found interesting was the Samsung 8K QN900C C for 2023 lists its peak brightness up to 4,000 nits.
Yes.
So, movies like The Meg, which was mastered at 4,000 nits, you can now watch without having to tone map.
Yeah, and they put in a pair of sunglasses with each one. It runs out every 15 minutes.
Right. Agreed.
In the 8K world, Scott, two things I'd like to throw in is that Samsung had what they call the Premier, which was 150-inch 8K ultra short. So there is another 8K ultra short.
Oh, okay.
And Demenco, I can never pronounce that right, which is the the sort of 3D-ish
Glasses-free stereoscopic.
yeah,
Yeah.
the light field guys.
Yeah.
They showed a 32-inch 8K and also a laptop with Demenco.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it looked like there was a lot of USTs making their way into the actual showroom floor, or the actual floor itself of the convention. That's what I noticed, and that's what we'll see on the next slide with the Leica.
Yes, excellent segue there.
You like
Chris.
that segue?
That was perfect. Perfect, man. So Leica, the company that is well known for camera lenses and cameras, very high end, introduced a UST, ultra short throw projector, called the Cine One, in the Hisense booth. And there's a picture of, I guess, their booth within a booth. Is that right, Mike?
Well, yeah.
It's like a store within a store.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was their own booth. And as I said earlier to you guys before we started, I was looking for the Leica booth all over the floor. And then I happened upon it by accident because I didn't realize it would be in the Hisense booth.
Found it.
Found it. So there it is, a Leica branded UST, which is really just a Hisense, one of the Hisense USTs within maybe a slightly different box, but using Leica lenses.
Yeah, it kind of seems like this one is two different units, right? Because I've seen this sliding. Because if you guys are looking at the bottom, where the UST is, the kind of the back slides away to expose, the projection part of the lens. I've seen this before in another unit itself. So I think that they're kind of meshing together a couple different amalgamations here. But the overall picture quality on this thing was stellar. Maybe it's because that the room itself was very inviting, because as you see around it, it's warm lights, has very, very dark painted stuff. And it's not necessarily open to the rest of the showroom, as you guys can see from the booth right here.
Right,
but they did a really good job of making this a really, really great performance, whether it be with this bright scene in Top Gun, and they also had Alita Battle Angel show off their contrast and the black levels.
Actually, I don't think you know that there was a CES rule that every video booth had to display Top Gun.
Nah, that was more of a Cedia thing.
Yeah, but
well, it carried over.
One other thing, though, that you were putting to the differences, the Leica people that I spoke to made a big deal, as well they should, for the price premium over the Hisense, to talk about the milled aluminum, the fancy schmancy case. And where in many of the brands that have USTs, it's sort of sunk into the cabinet below it. Here, it's very much intended to be sitting and viewed in the
on
room.
top.
Yeah, I think that's more in line with its price point too.
Very well done piece of aluminum cabinet.
Right, and the price point, if I'm not mistaken, is $8,300.
Yep,
that's pretty much unheard of for USTs, unless you're talking about something handcrafted in Italy.
Right,
and
this is handcrafted in Germany. Then the interface is Google, right?
The interface is Google, and interestingly, they're selling it in Europe without Google. They're using the Android version.
Got to save something somewhere.
Yeah, you do. Joe and Tell is in the chat room, and I got to give a shout out to him. He's a friend of mine, does a lot of great stuff on YouTube as well. He asked Hisense to review this Leica UST to match his Leica M240.
Yeah, indeed. Joe and Tell. Everyone loves Joe and Tell.
Yeah, he's great. He is great. Okay, so there was a question in the chat room that I really wanted to touch upon. Lucas, Mike, you mentioned to me before the show that, there's Nanosys, but that's not what I was going to get to first. I was going to get to the one before that. After CES, Sony and Philips confirmed that their 2023 TVs would use Mediatek Pentonic chip with VVC H.266 compression, finally Blu-ray quality streaming. And Mike, you told me that the Mediatek chip also is Calman ready. So
Yes.
Any TV that has this Mediatek chip in it would be ready to interface with Calman calibration software.
Or so they said.
or so they say. We'll see. But this is kind of big news, I think.
And for what it's worth, sort of in a parallel path, Mediatek is also putting the ATSC 3.0 into some of their SoCs, a little alphabet soup there. So hopefully that
SoC
will,
system on a chip.
yes. So that's they're really getting a little bit more front facing in what they're doing. As to what Luke has said about Nanosys, I apologize. I didn't realize that Nanosys was going to be there because I always like to go and see them. They've
Yeah.
been talking about self-emissive quantum dot, and when we did this very show, I think it was the first one, Scott, back at Display Week, they were talking about that.
Yep.
They've been talking about that for years. They'll
Now,
still be talking at it for a while.
well, yeah, but they were showing it again, and probably
Yeah.
some
They're
improvement.
getting closer.
They're getting closer. I'm sorry I didn't clue you into them. I should have. I did get an email.
Sorry, yeah.
I got an email from them saying, "Hey, we're going to be in the Venetian. You want to come visit?" Because they're friends of mine, and I would have gone to visit them had I been there.
Oh, as would I if I had known they
Yeah,
were
I'm
there.
sorry I didn't clue you into that. I should have done that for sure.
That really seems like a common thread with, again, like I was talking about with CES this year, is that you have to know exactly what's going on in which different part of the conventions that's off of the showroom floor to go see this stuff. So it's not very typical to see everything all in one spot.
Yeah.
Well, also the CTA people who have long been very opposed to what's called outboarding, which is if I'm a company and I don't want to pay for a booth on the floor, I'll take a suite at the fancy hotel of your choice and invite the press and key dealers.
Right.
This year, it seemed that CTA was sanctioning offboarding. So Sharp had a 5,000 square foot booth in the Win, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's true.
Xperi, who is the parent company for DTS and my brains are fried. DTS and HD radio and the IMAX and TVs and TiVo, their suite was in the Park MGM, and they kept inviting me. And I said, "Look, I just can't make it down there." But it should be noted that they are also going to be supplying the OS for TVs, and then Roku is also coming out with their own TVs, and I did see them at Showstoppers, and that's yet another thing about where the market's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. It was interesting to see that Roku, having made streamers and among the most popular ones, are now going to have Roku branded TVs, probably made by TCL or Hisense or somebody like that. We don't know, right?
Nope. And they were very, clearly that's something that I've been asking them about is what does this mean for your relationship with TCL? No, we love them. We're still going to have them. But if you looked closer at the TCL line, they had almost as many Google TV sets as they did Roku sets, although they're still very, forward pushing on Roku. So I think this is a defense mechanism. And one of the things that Roku said that they're doing is they're also having a reference design for an OLED set using the Roku OS and have that be open to all manufacturers. So it's going to be an interesting time.
It's going to be an interesting time.
I think we have to go into extra innings. Looks like we're only 7 slides in.
Yeah, well, we're doing the best we can here. We've talked about the Leica TCL Q series. Did we have a photo of TCL? I've forgotten. I thought we
Next
did.
one that I got is this one.
That is the TCL equivalent of the LC of the LG display. CSOT is a company that TCL bought a couple of years ago. Sorry for the alphabet soup. That actually makes the panels.
Right.
So just as they showed that 240 hertz 98 micro LED, that was not a thing you could buy this year.
Right. This was a concept piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. TCL CSOT is equivalent to LG Display and Samsung Display.
Yeah, that stands for China Star, I believe, was the company they bought.
Right. But and as you said earlier, while we're on TCL, Mike, they sort of redid their branding
Yeah.
so that it's now not the 5 series, 6 series, 8 series. It's the Q series and S series.
Yes.
And the Q series looked pretty interesting to me. There's a QM8 mini LED with 2300 local dimming zones.
Yep.
The Q7 and QM8 are both 240 hertz variable refresh rate, so that gets back to the game monitorization of TVs, because these will
And
be great.
they did say, I'm just looking at my notes actually from before CES, that they said that TCL may have a QD-OLED in the second half of the year.
Ah, very interesting.
And they also said, to your point, we don't see a big demand for 8K in 2023. They could do it yesterday if they wanted to, but they don't want to, and
because they don't see a demand, and therein lies the rub.
Well, for the same reason why their sets don't have ATSC 3.0 tuners yet. But they did say that they're going to go into the custom market. They're going to put in discrete IR codes and maybe some more lower level controls for calibrators.
Right. Okay. Well, we've spent the whole hour talking about video, and there was a lot of video to talk about. What can we say? There was some audio also, which I think we probably don't have time to talk about. I didn't hear nearly as much. Certainly, the high-end audio that used to be at the Venetian wasn't there.
Yeah, the Venetian suites are completely it's dwindling for sure. Probably the latest one that I saw there was the Perliston, Dirac, and Storm Audio booth. They kind of
that was really good. Did you get to see that, Chris?
I didn't, but I actually got someone to do some video work for me, so hopefully I'll be able to put that video out soon.
Mike, you heard it, right?
What did you think about it, Mike?
Hear it, and it was quite good. There are a couple questions that are being a show. I didn't have time to ask them, but yes, it did. It was demonstrably better.
And then they had the Focal booths over at the Mirage. The Nakamichi was another one that was on the floor, I think.
Trinov was somewhere.
Harman Luxury Audio they had a big booth, a lot of announcements.
And a new turntable.
That's right.
To compete
a Bluetooth turntable.
To compete with the Victrola Stream.
Right. Exactly.
And that'll be interesting. Vinyl is the new streaming.
So it is. Well, one thing, just a few photos left to talk about. VR was a big deal at CES this year, I think. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And so, Mike, you took this picture. What is this?
This is some Sony guy with the mask and some attendee guy with the Sony VR2 for PS5. We've got alphabet soup all over the place.
Yeah.
It being the pandemic, I just didn't want to try on. I don't care how many times they wiped it down. I wasn't going to put that thing on.
You're talking about that guy's mask?
Yeah.
No,
the attendee.
Right.
But everybody said it was quite good. And the other thing is, in addition to the better resolution in the headset, is you notice that the things that are on their hands looked like what you would use, with a Meta or one of the more advanced VR things. They've gotten away from the Sony Move things that it looks like the guy on the ramp at the airport,
Right.
Speaking of Sony Move.
Oh, now.
Tell us about this, Mike.
This is the LG. I apologize. I don't know the name of the device. This is a real product. And LG has a thing that's like a closet where you hang your clothes in, and it is a dry cleaner at home. And this is the similar type of process for shoes. And this was, hey, I don't make this stuff up, guys. And this was just one, although I'll bet that pair of shoes probably cost more than the thing. But they
Right.
had in another part of the booth where we would have seen a TV, they had that stacked up on a 4x6 array of these things. That's a damn lot of shoes.
Yeah.
But and of course you could see the progress of it on your TV.
Why, of course. Um, and finally, we had the MIDI music box.
Oh, I did that one for you, Scott, because I know you're the musician in the group.
I'm the musician in the family, and I was a member of the MIDI Manufacturers Association executive board for many years back when I was doing pro audio, and so here it is, the first app controlled music box.
So consider this: if any of you have seen the Yamaha electronic player pianos that instead of a piano roll it plays MIDI or whatever.
Yep.
So this is the same thing, but like the little music box where there's usually a twirling ballerina on top of it in the metal tines.
Right.
And they either sell you music as you see on the phone, but it was very crowded down in Eureka Park. I couldn't get a close shot, but it has a MIDI keyboard that you can connect into that and make your own music played on one of those music box thingies.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Make your own MIDI beats.
Yeah.
Joe and Tell had a couple of interesting things to say here. For audio, there was Dirac ART. Is that the company ART?
Yes. No, okay. ART is the. Oh wait, I got to get my notebook here. Hold on. Keep going. I'll get what.
In chiropractic, that's active release technology. Well, release technique.
Okay. All right. There was Oro 3D CX streaming.
Yeah.
Didn't those guys go bankrupt?
I thought so.
They're back, baby.
Willem van Balen. I'll have to see if he's still around. Anyway, Nakamichi had a soundbar. DTS IMAX audio on Disney Plus. There you go. So if you got Disney Plus streaming, you will be able to get DTS IMAX audio, that's kind of cool.
Yes, active as Joe and Tell said, the ART here is active room treatment. Second quarter for Storm audio. Later in the year for others. And Scott, this is your bag.
Yeah.
The speaker becomes a bass trap, and it's all sorts of really cool, as you would expect from the rack, reflective kind of stuff. But it was really impressive.
That sort of thing is my bag, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
And then Joe and Tell also says Dolby Atmos in the Maybach, which is a car.
Yeah, that's the Super Flooper Mercedes.
Okay.
I'm not sure they're using that branding, but Dolby has been after using Atmos in that type of environment for a long time, and you'll see a lot more of that.
I do have a picture of the JVC, the new JVC projector. That's the little baby on top of their flagship 4100 right there.
Okay,
but the NZ30, it's the replacement for the NZ3.
Is the baby 4K?
It is. It's a DLP.
Okay.
So DLP is a little more than 4K, if you ask me. I think Epson is really 4K, but DLP can actually get 4K in a temporal way.
Yeah.
Was this at CES?
That's one of the Venetian suites. Yeah, it was at CES.
Okay.
JVC was the only thing on that floor. The next floor up had the Pearliston booth.
Right. How much for the JVC? Joe and Tell asked how much for the JVC and how were the black levels?
Same price as the outgoing model. It's available in black and white. And let's see, what was the last thing? Oh, the one of the new updates is that motion is just incredible on this thing. They were playing a video game and they had this bird that I guess you can get lost and you can just shoot up a bird and the bird checks out and gets your bearings. But whenever you watch him gliding over and stuff over the landscape, looks really, really cool.
Huh. And good sharp motion.
Good sharp motion. Black levels, they didn't turn off the ambient light in the room, so I couldn't give you an accurate depiction of what it would or wouldn't be.
Yep.
But it definitely looked a little bit better than one of the JVCs that I tested in my house three-ish years ago when the NZ3 came out.
Okay. Lucas is asking Mike if you've seen the TCL 65-inch 8K glasses-free 3D TV.
I believe I have, but didn't make a big note of it because that's also still in the science project world. And 8K glasses free, but where's the content?
Yeah, exactly.
I did take a couple more pictures though.
Oh,
so
please,
let me pop these in. This
let's
is the 150-inch AWOL vision, which is the weirdest thing if you've ever been in the military. But it's the
now. Wait. So that's what you watch when you are AWOL.
I guess the price is right. But the LTV 3500, they have the Pro version now. So even if you've already spent your hard-earned shekels on the 3500, you're fine. All you have to do is just download a firmware update, and you're updated to Pro. You basically get a lot more, different things to increase your viewing experience. But this right here, what you're looking at, probably doesn't look super awesome, but this is a 3D image of Avatar in 3D. So you can actually watch Avatar in 150-inch with your glasses. So really, really cool stuff.
Wow. Okay. Excellent.
And they're making a big play for the custom market. They were at CES.
Yeah, they were. And then on the other side, they have their 2500. But you guys can check that out on my YouTube channel. That Home Theater Dude already did a video on this one.
Excellent. Wonderful.
Shameless plug. But this is the UST for Hisense. This is their 8K model. Obviously, it got an award, Best of Show from AVS Forum. But this thing it's unique. It looks cool.
Looks cool. Really
it's
cool.
It's pretty big too. But it's I guess it's to hide all of those 8K pixels.
Now, what's the imaging technology? Is it DLP?
They were very tight-lipped on every single thing regarding this specific unit.
I would guess that it is,
because a lot of the times with stuff like this, they want to be able to be first to show it, but they don't have all the details worked out, and they don't want to give away their patents and secrets just yet.
Right. What was the largest screen size? Do you know about that?
TV or UST?
No, that last UST that you showed us.
Ooh, yeah, they didn't tell me.
They didn't tell you that either. Okay. Well, it looks cool. It's got good industrial design.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the Leica version.
Yeah, exactly.
Double the price.
All right. Any last words?
Can I throw in a few other random thoughts on some of this stuff?
Please.
The Samsung Freestyle, which is a thing that looks like a light can.
A little projector.
It looks like a Foster's beer can.
Now have edge blend to it. So you can put two of them side by side, and you've got a wide aspect ratio picture.
Oh, cool.
That was interesting. In the projector world, there was a lot more of what I would call cube projectors. And a company whose name I can't pronounce, XGIMI, XGIMI.
Yeah.
They were making a lot of noise, and it looked okay.
XGIMI, 4Movie,
Hisense
had a cube.
Oh yeah, 4Movie, yeah.
4Movie, what they did it well. They were one of the first booths right after Sony that I went to.
Oh yeah, they won the UST shootout.
They did, and that's what piqued my interest. I actually got one sent over here months ago. And I did a review, but to see it again, on the showroom floor with horrendous lighting conditions, it looked incredible for sure, and it sounded awesome.
Oh, it's got its own built-in soundbar, right?
Yeah, so they have a Bowers system in there, and they have this like mung beam, like I guess what was that movie with the apes? And then that's like dun 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 dun.
Oh,
so they had that with
2001.
Like the yeah, they had that with the beans, and they were showing off their sound system with it. It was all in like Chinese writing or whatever it was, but it sounded incredible. It looked funny. I laughed so hard I recorded. I sat back down and recorded it.
Wow. Wow. All right,
but
cool.
you can't leave a discussion of CES without mentioning the industrialized edible insect factory.
Oh my God, there was another techie product there that I'll probably get kicked out of this. We're talking about.
And I know we're sort of audio video guys here,
Yeah.
but there was one booth where they had a thing about IoT, and I know what most people think what IoT stands for, except in that booth it was Internet of Toilets. I don't make this stuff up, guys.
Oh man,
I think there was a little bit too much overlap this year with the adult video awards. I think that there's too much overlap.
Who were back this year?
Yeah.
Were they back this year? Really?
No one was.
I'm
just keeping my mouth shut.
Wow, wow. Well, speaking of health stuff, there was this thing. I did see a news story. Maybe I shouldn't mention it here, but I guess I will. A little thing you stick in your toilet and it does a urinalysis.
Yes, that was. I'm going to get in trouble no matter how.
All right, Joe was talking about it. He found it out, so you guys can check it out in the chat. I'm not going to bring it up.
All right, fine.
No, but that was the mainstream media, if you will, picked that up. Those guys did a good. It's called Withings, and they were
which is a very good scales and health stuff. That's a very high end brand.
But that was if you will, a contact device down in Eureka Park in the, no kidding, Israeli pavilion. They had a toilet seat that had all sorts of sensors, and the guy was very quick to say no cameras, but it had all sorts of sensors that would do more than just the kind of thing that the Withings did, but all sorts of serious analysis on waste products.
It's not big here, but great overseas.
Well,
man.
But there was a lot of that kind of product at CES.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I missed it because it's always a lot of fun, I think. And I would have been there this year, but
oh my God, this guy gives the meeting to streaming.
G-Man music. Yeah, man.
Get this man a beer.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think we have to say goodbye.
We're getting loopy.
We are getting kind of loopy here. Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks you guys so much for being here and going over all the really cool and maybe not so cool stuff from CES. Mike Heiss, my good friend and freelance journalist and industry consultant and all around jolly good CEDIA fellow. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, Scott, as always. Stay well. I hope you get your power back soon.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. Latest report is that we should get it back maybe later today. Cool. And Chris Mata, my technical director for the tech guy. This is not the tech guy. This is Tech Talk.
Check out my crutches.
Yeah. Oh, check out your crutches right next to your Marine uniform.
Oh, they're not at all related.
Not at all related. I would assume not. Yeah. But be sure to go check out Chris on that Home Theater Dude channel at YouTube. And we thank you so much for being here, watching this show. Until next time, I should say, geek out.
Later.